Welcome to the Teach Bigger podcast. I'm Kris Mosley.
And I'm Chris Pratt, and this is episode 1 of the Teach Bigger podcast. What is Teach Bigger? Hey, first of all, we want to say a big thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast.
Yeah, we know that everyone has a busy schedule, and we don't take for granted that you are taking the time to listen to this podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Now, hey, look, I want to set the record straight from the very beginning. I am not the Chris Pratt who was in Jurassic Park or Guardians of the Galaxy.
But he did play a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You look for him in one of those movies. So
look, I get that all the time. No matter if I call people on the phone, I give my name at, when we go out to eat or whatever. Like
also
anytime.
set the record. Let them know you're way older than that Chris Pratt, so they know that also.
Actually, I'm not. But
okay, I'm sorry.
So, anyways, just to clear that up.
Well, let's move on, shall we? Now that we've cleared the air with that. Okay, so. First, before we get into what this is about, a little background on, I'll start with myself, I guess. Have 10 years teaching experience with both middle school and high school as a band director. I'm currently pursuing my master's degree full-time, and that gives me an opportunity to travel to many schools as a consultant to aid teachers with things like classroom management and content in their classroom. So I'm really excited that I get a chance to do that this year. Now, one thing to understand about the background between myself and the other Chris is that we've worked together in 3 different school districts. And my first year teaching, I taught with him. So we have a background, I believe it's 7 years, something like that, teaching experience.
Yeah,
and
I think so.
With different, school districts. So one of the benefits of teaching in different school districts together is that we were able to see the differences in culture and infrastructure, which led to many conversations about like things that could be done to benefit teachers, in those different districts that we were in. So, that led to many conversations with kind of pushes us to, this point. So that's a little bit about me. As we go along, I'm sure I'll share more with you. I think I should pause and say this because I think it's important. My personality, I'm straightforward, and sometimes I don't have a filter, but don't be offended. It's all out of love, and I always say, usually if you're offended, it's probably true. I'm probably talking to you, but it's all about love and growth. And here's the background also. As a music person, if we don't tell the truth about how the music sounds, then you as a listener, you will not be pleased. So you can charge it to that. So if I say anything that might sound like, I can't believe he said that, that's because of my background. But I mean it out of love, and I, definitely mean the best. So there you go. That's something about me. What about you, other Chris? Tell us about you.
Honestly, it is a little awkward that we're both named Chris because
that's correct. So we are both named Chris.
It is what it is. But let's see. I'm in my 14th year of teaching, and so I started out teaching in middle school at the middle school level, and I'm currently teaching high school. And I too am a band director. Strangely enough, like he said, we met that way, and so I'm currently serving as the director of bands in a district here in the Houston area. And let's see, I'm the director of bands, I teach the high school band, and I'm also the coordinator of fine arts for the district. So I have a lot of different hats, and I see a lot of different things. I work with a lot of different teachers. I'm an official mentor for our district. I'm also on almost every committee the district has. I'm constantly in meetings,
all day,
planning, brainstorming, trying to figure out how to make our district better. Everything from assessment to culture to leadership. I think I sit in on tons of interviews. So I've been around a lot of things, and so just really excited to be able to share some of these experiences and some of these thoughts with you, as we do this. So I tend to not be very rude, but I am very honest.
No, I didn't say rude.
Oh.
I said no. I said no filter, and
Yes.
I didn't say rude. So
Okay.
I'm not a rude person, I think.
Right. That's what everybody who's rude thinks. Anyways. So we do want this podcast to be real for you. We hope that you have a good time with it. And at the end of each episode, our hope is that you're walking away challenged and that you have something to take back to your classroom. Mm-hmm. Now, I do want to pause and say for just a minute, if you've tuned into this and you are not a teacher, like a public educator or something like that, that doesn't mean that this podcast isn't for you, because I think you'll find that many of the concepts and many of the things that we talk about in this show are going to apply in every aspect of your life. And in fact, as we go through the show a little bit more today, we'll have an opportunity to kind of explain how we want to see people apply this teach bigger concept to everything they're doing in their lives. It's not just teach bigger, it's live bigger. So
achieve bigger.
Right. So, that's kind of what we are. So, Mosley, why don't you, Okay. So Kris, why don't you, talk to them a little bit about why we're doing Teach Bigger.
Great. Okay. So why Teach Bigger? I'm glad you asked. You asked all the right questions. Thank you. Okay. So with our experiences from the three different school districts, we were able to, gather a lot of observations, let's say, just about the things administration did to evaluate teachers and to, help move them in the direction that they want their specific school and their different district to go to. So that led us to many conversations. So let's start with this. So my first year teaching, I was first year teacher, but with band, I was fortunate enough to have another teacher there. So another experienced teacher who I could watch. And
I'll just interject, was a brilliant teacher.
It's because it was him.
Right.
Not so brilliant, but let me just rephrase that. An experienced teacher who I had a chance to watch, in real time and how he handled things. Now, he didn't necessarily give me feedback on what to do to be better, but I had a chance to watch him. And I think as an experienced teacher, if he saw some things that I didn't do correctly, he would kind of have his passive aggressive way of like helping me out. But I was fortunate enough to do that. And I know a lot of core teachers like English and math, you don't necessarily have that. So I was, very fortunate. So, but whenever I moved school districts and I was the only band director at a school, I found that I didn't have much help. Like I was the only person to have to worry about like the curriculum. I was the only person to have to worry about classroom management, and it was so many times I wish that I had somebody or someone to go to help maybe critique me and maybe give me motivation, different ideas on different way to think about it, so my kids could really grow. Because when you're the only teacher, if the kids are not progressing the way you want them to, you have to look at yourself and say, what am I doing wrong? But when I was alone at that school, I wish I had somebody, some community to kind of go to. Also with Teach Bigger, take it back. With different districts, the assessments that the principals give you, they're so formal. Like you have to follow this guideline, and this guideline, and sometimes we're not really comfortable, in asking feedback because that's our evaluator, So with Teach Bigger, if you had a way of maybe looking at things differently, you have people to give you feedback that's not so formal because we're not your evaluators, people who have the same issues or can help you look at things differently. We think that could be a very valuable tool. We also want to highlight what great teachers are doing. What I found my first couple of years is I just love to go watch great teachers, and I got a lot of tools from them. And so we want to be that resource where we can say, hey, this is what this teacher's doing. It's working for them. Maybe you can try that. And then, maybe get feedback from you. We want to give you cutting edge information and techniques. And so we're going to keep doing that. And so Teach Bigger. Teach Bigger. It's kind of different things, and I'm kind of break that down for you to understand. It has to do with one, delivery. In our experience, we observed that some success or lack of success in a classroom or just in an environment has to do with delivery of information. Because there were many talented teachers or people that were very knowledgeable in what their content area, but they were not abreast on how to deliver the information, and so the children were not receiving information. And so it was kind of like you had that block there. And so if they could have somebody to help them with the delivery, that could really help the success rate of their students, we believe. Also, another like avenue of teach bigger is culture. We also observe that the success of any classroom, program, or organization is a direct reflection of the culture that is fostered in that environment. And culture can be defined as the way we do things, the way we listen, the way we talk, the way we respond, the way we go to the restroom, the way we raise our hand, and the way we have respect for each other. All those things play a huge part. And there were many professional developments that we did on what to teach the kids, but not how to foster a culture that the kids can receive that information. So we're going to talk a lot about culture because that I think really helps out a lot. And then last is mindset. Mindset, it goes right along with culture. Being coachable. This is for the teacher and for the receiver of information. As a teacher, young teacher, old teacher, we have to be a lifelong learner, and that comes with being coachable. If me as a teacher, if I know, hey, like I have a lot to learn, I'm more open to receive information from people that make me better. But if I think I know everything, then it's hard to receive information, and sometimes people will maybe not try to help you. Why? Because they know you're not going to receive it. So I think it's important as a teacher or a person to be a lifelong learner, to be coachable so you can continue to grow. And I think with that also, you have to have a culture of the kids of being coachable. So like if I'm a student, like your job is to receive as much information as possible. And if you have a culture of like that fosters that being coachable idea, then I think it'll help your classroom and your environment to really, really pay off and go the direction that you wanted to go. So that's just a couple of things.
Okay, so that's
a mouthful, but
right. Let's talk about culture for a second.
Okay.
So, I looked it up on Wikipedia because everything's true on there. And on Wikipedia it says that a culture is the social behavior and norms found in human societies. Okay, well, that's
norms.
That makes a lot of sense. So ask yourself this question: whether if you're a teacher in the classroom, as a parent, look at your family life, look at your children, look at your home. If you're in business, look at the way that the business operates, okay? And if you're the leader of the business, all the more. And so the question to ask is, what behaviors and norms do I see operating in my world around me that I have control over? And do I like them or not? Mm-hmm. And if I don't like them, it's about changing my culture. So every one of us are in a place to influence, if not completely change our culture.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you need to know also is it takes a while. You have to be patient to change a culture because you're dealing with people, and mm-hmm. people want to do what they want to do. And when you're dealing with culture, you're giving up some of your individual wants, and you're letting that go for a group goal. And so I think it's important, and it takes a while, and you have to be patient, but you have to be consistent and relentless to try to build the culture that you want. And over time, it takes a shift.
Right. So, on this Teach Bigger podcast, we are going to cater to teachers. That's what we do, but that's not all we are. Right. And even if you're a teacher or you're not, I think you can look beyond the classroom and start to see this culture building mechanism in every part of your life. If you look at your family life, whatever you're looking at, even in the way you take care of yourself, like,
So I recently
mm-hmm.
took a personality quiz,
mm-hmm.
right? And I'm sure with you listening, you can tell I have a great personality. But this test, proved it correct. It's true. But what it said was I'm a people observer, and so it's really, really true. So I watch and I see how people respond to things. Like if they're negative, I wonder like what are they doing or what is their lifestyle like that they're always saying negative things, and it's always a reason. And I think as teachers also, you have to understand like the culture of things, or why are things going a certain way? If your school, right, like let's say if I'm a principal, if your school is not doing well, you have to understand, well, is it my teachers? Are they acting a certain way? Or, do they not feel a certain way? Do they not feel welcome? Is it not like a good morale or something like that? So I think as people in general or teachers in general, you have to be observant of why people do things, and it has to do with culture.
Right. if you're a classroom teacher, right now we're currently, recording this episode during the Christmas break. And so we're getting ready to come back to school in January. And there are a lot of teachers that are sitting right now dreading this moment.
That's
not
correct.
not because they don't want to come back to work necessarily. The reason they don't want to come back to work is because they're entering into a bad culture.
Right.
And that culture is their classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things we want to help is identify some of those points and try to fix those things. And so that's a lot of what this podcast is going to be about, is about helping you to shape the culture and the vision that you have for whatever you're doing. You had talked about a mindset, right? And I would say Teach Bigger is also a mindset. It's not,
right.
It is a culture, and it's about learning how to shape a culture, but it's also a mindset. See, if you don't have this idea that you want to teach bigger, then you're never going to get there. So look, one of the big complaints that teachers have, it's all about, these kids are lazy. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to try anything new.
Well, of course they don't want to do anything. They're kids. They rather play on their phones.
Right.
So,
but look, here's the thing. I think that through the Teach Bigger podcast, and as you commit to listening and tuning into us, you're going to find an opportunity to change your thinking. We want to present some challenges to you, and we want to bring up some hard topics so that you can say, like, what do I think about this, and how do I think about this, and am I thinking about it right? Am I thinking about it about what I want or what's best? Am I settling for mediocrity, or am I trying to do something bigger?
Yeah, and you know what? I think as far as the mindset goes, when you're growing, you have to have uncomfortable conversations, and it's really usually about you. And so I think the mindset of am I being coachable, you have to have those uncomfortable conversations, sometimes with yourself, sometimes with other people that you trust, to help you grow. And that is a Teach Bigger mindset,
Right.
and that's going to help you get better and help everybody, I believe.
Absolutely. I would say, okay, what's the Teach Bigger mindset? Okay, I think it could go somewhere along these lines. Like, I'm not satisfied with mediocrity, right? Or just what's acceptable. I see so many teachers and they're like, well, what do I have to do? What do I have to do to get this done? Instead of taking the information as a launching pad and saying, where can I go with this? So it's about not being satisfied with mediocrity. None of us want our students to be mediocre, right? Nobody wants to be average. I say this to my kids all the time. I say, hey, nobody wants to be average. Everybody wants to be exceptional. Everybody wants to be great. Like, if I look at you and say, hey, Johnny, you're an average kid. That's an insult in our society, right? But it's true. Most people are average.
Right.
It's the average, right? So this podcast is all about challenging you to not be average as a teacher, as a person, doing things bigger. For teachers, this is huge, because if we can model this, and this is what we're striving for, it'll start to rub off on our students.
Right. That's good. And, sometimes it's like an evaluation time, because it's like, did he just call me average?
Right.
Yeah,
I did.
So, yeah. So, it's just like, look at you. And if you think, hey, it might be, I have to do this or step this up, that's a good thing, and we all have to sometimes look in the mirror and say, like, this is not going well. Why is it not going well? Okay, it's my fault. Okay, I got to fix it, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's all a part of being responsible and, growing. So,
all right. So what is Teach Bigger? It is a culture. It's a mindset. And now I think we can even take it a bit further. It's a lifestyle, because, once you start to get these concepts and you start thinking through this different lens, it's going to start affecting everything you do. It's not just, am I eating healthy, or am I trying to eat healthy?
Right.
But it's, am I trying to be proactive, and am I looking to the future? Am I doing things bigger so that I have some goals in mind where I want to be, even, physically or whatever down the road? So it's a lot about lifestyle. And that's why I think this podcast also is going to extend so far beyond teachers, because let's say I'm a CEO, let's say I'm an administrator, let's say I run my own business. But whenever I start having this mindset and this lifestyle, that in every small thing I do, one thing I say all the time, and I took it from a book, it's a book title, but it's great. It's Do Hard Things. Like, sometimes you just have to do hard things. You have to do bigger things.
Right.
And so when I start to adopt that as my lifestyle, it's not that I go out of my way to make things complicated,
Right.
but it's that I look to find what's the next level that I can get there.
And there's like this poster or something is this saying somewhere? It's not mine. Okay. It was saying something like excellence is a habit, and so you have to practice it. And so the part where I believe, adapting this with a lifestyle is if you hold yourself to a certain standard with everything you do, the teaching thing or presenting or whatever you do, it'll just come naturally. Why? Because you're holding yourself just to a high standard, and why would your work be any different? Right. So this would make the this change or improvement or whatever even easier, is because you're just adapting as a way of life. I had a trainer, right? I'm in really, really good shape, to let you guys know. Anyway, and he was talking about, like, the first time I ever had a trainer, and he was saying, I was like, I'm doing this diet and stuff. And he was like, oh, you're dieting? I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get it together. I've been getting my life together for, I don't know, like 20 years. And so he was like, well, you really have to change your way of thinking about eating, and you have to change like a lifestyle, because if you're going for like a diet, you're going to like set yourself up for disappointment, because a diet is for like a certain amount of time. You're going to, stop it, gain all the way back. So you have to change your lifestyle. I'm like, I guess I do. Anyway, I've been working to change my lifestyle
I was just going to ask, so when are you going to change?
For a long time. But it's going to happen. But the way you think about things really changes your perception, I guess. And so I think the lifestyle, of thinking bigger, achieving bigger, will help you communicate on a different level.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's so interesting about the name of our show, Teach Bigger, is, at face value, you would think, well, this is for teachers.
Right.
But stop and think about it. Everyone's teaching someone something. Right. If you're a parent, you're teaching your children.
That's true.
If you own your own business, or you're a manager or anything like that, you have people under you. You're teaching someone all the time. So, yeah, we are going to talk a whole lot about public education and teaching and private education and homeschool and educating children. But all of this, it really goes into every aspect of your life. Right. And I hope that you can feel that and gather that, from what we're doing. So, finally, I would say that this whole Teach Bigger thing, it's going to be a community. Okay. And listen, you're going to have to give us time with this. We're building this from the ground up.
Hey, so like I told you, I'm in really, really good shape. So,
And look,
one thing.
Let me tell you something. He's not in terrible shape. He's not. So don't get the idea that he's being sarcastic.
Podcast might be shorter than we expected, because I'm going to throw a bottle of water. Anyway, you guys will see soon. No, and so I do yoga, right? And so yoga is really hard. And one thing that I took from one of my trainers, who's really, really awesome, she says, this is not about reaching a destination. It's about enjoying the journey. I'm like, oh, that's really good. As I was trying to stumble to keep my balance. Right. I'm like enjoying the journey while I don't fall over, So I did take that, and that's yoga. And I kind of applied that to my life as far as like working out or whatever. And so this is definitely something like we're in this journey together. We're still educating. We're still working, with teachers and things. And, we're developing this podcast from the ground up, and it's a developing thing. And
yeah, and
some time.
Yeah, and some things that you can look forward to. Soon we're going to have an outlet for you to give us feedback, and we want that feedback because we want to cater this, to you. And
right.
And if you have questions or you have suggestions or ideas, or you just want to tell your story, we want to be able to highlight those things, right. Because as a teacher, that whenever you hear somebody else's story for that day, it makes you want to go back to school and teach them,
Right. Or you say something that's going on and a teacher tells you, I'm going through the same thing. That's why so many teachers run to the teacher's lounge. Right. Right. Because you want to find an adult to like say, hey, oh, I just, I'm having this type of day or bad day. And, it's good to kind of sometimes even kind of like vent to kind of get it off your chest, and then, have somebody tell you, okay, it's going to be okay. Settle down, don't go clock out just yet. It's the middle of the day, Right. And so, that's something to kind of look forward to here.
And we have some big plans, as you would expect, for Teach Bigger. And as we develop this podcast, we want to create a platform and a network of teachers and educators and leaders, who can share.
That's a good word, leader.
Leaders.
Because a teacher is a leader. And if you're in a company, if you're in a administration position, you're a leader, you think about that. So a lot of things that we're going to say will help you and help us as leaders also. So you definitely can apply that stuff too.
Right. So we're going to make a place where you can share your ideas, information, be encouraged and challenged. Something else you can expect to see in the weeks to come is we're going to open up a website and a blog site. And even in the near future, we hope to launch a YouTube series.
See, then y'all can see how good of shape.
Right. So you better get your life together.
I know. I better drink this water.
Right. So, we're especially going to highlight our K through 12 educators, giving techniques and methods that, hopefully will ignite your classroom with excitement and structure. But I think even if you're not a K through 12 educator, like I said before, you're going to find that the content, on this podcast is going to help you in every area of your life. And so that's what we hope to do here.
Yeah. That's good.
It is good. Okay. So that being said, I think it's story time.
Okay, boys and girls, go ahead. Come on, gather around. Go ahead and have a seat on the carpet here. I'm going to get out my book, and I'm going to tell you a story. This has to do with our humble beginnings, okay? Just to kind of let you know of our experiences also. So,
because I think it's important to interject here this. We don't claim to be the best educators in the world. We just want to share what we know, but we've certainly come from among the worst.
So I'm going to let you know. And this was my first year teaching, and this was his first year at the school. So it was kind of, whenever you go to a new school, it's kind of like a first year because you're learning everything, So, okay, so this story is entitled "The Time We Left." Okay, so we took a band trip to somewhere. I forgot where it was. But we took a band trip and we took one of the groups. And so whenever you leave, you have to leave, work for the kids to do, information for the substitute and all that. So my class was a more challenging class, let's say.
There were about maybe 20 kids in there?
I would give it about 30.
Okay.
Yeah, I think your memory is like
it's very positive.
It was way more than 20, but it's about 30 kids, and they were a very challenging class. And I was the lead teacher in there, and I learned a lot. In there, so you just had to love on them.
But he learned that after.
I learned that after they
over.
left. Right, but anyway, so we left, and so we were gone for the day, and we took one of the bands, and they did really well at the competition, and we got back, and we had a successful day. And we come back, and then I think we found the substitute, or
I think because we came back before the school day was over, and so she was still in the
there.
room. Yeah,
and she had this look on her face, and the look was of I would say like terror. It's almost, like whenever you see a car accident and like it just happened right in your face,
right.
Of like, I don't know what just happened. That's how her face was, and she starts to tell us.
Now, before we go any further, mind you, look, this class was not perfect, but they were controllable. They were
controlled, but they were hard to control.
They were challenging.
They were challenging.
But we never had fights. We never had issues.
Fights, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like we can't control them. We could totally control
them. Yeah. So and she goes on to tell us what happened. And so we're there, and she says how they were running around the room. She said they were throwing chairs.
Throwing chairs.
And she said that she wrote a note, and they took the note from her, and they tore it up. and they, using profane language, and they were throwing things, and they were fighting with each other. And she said it was chaos, and she was just couldn't believe how these kids could act that way. And we were sympathetic, man, we apologize,
right,
and this and that. But so that was that. And so I looked to Chris, and I'm like, they did, they acted up. I guess they were upset because they were, one of the bands that were at the school, but we took the top band to this performance, and they had to stay home because they were not in the performance. So it's kind of like, I'm not being offensive, but this is kind of how I think about it. Like whenever you leave and your dog's upset with you and they tear up the house,
right?
And then you come back, and they're like, they kind of look at you because they know they're in trouble. That's kind of how it was. So we went to lunch, And one thing we do well is lunch.
Right.
And I was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because I'm going to have to say this to them, like we have to totally change their environment. We have to we can't have classes normal. We can't go there and lecture them because it's not going to work.
Right.
So we have to make them uncomfortable is what I said. So, okay, how did I do? So we had risers, it's like a platform that they sit on. So they kind of sit a little bit higher than like floor. And their chairs were, their normal chairs. So I said, I got it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all the chairs out. We're going to take the risers out. The room is going to be empty. And they're going to come in the room and we're just going to stand there.
Yeah. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. And so we're going to stand there, right? Because they'll be uncomfortable. So here's what happened. I had one of my classes. We cleared out the room. We made sure everything was right. We closed the door. There was nothing in the room. So it's like a big empty room, right? And we just stand at the front. And so whenever they come in, they know they're in trouble. This is the dog, right? This is whenever you come home and your dog tore up your shoe, right? And you come in. And so they walk in. And they're not how they normally are. Because they see the room and they see the room is not how they left it.
Right.
Which is in shambles, right? And so they walk in and they kind of look. And we kind of just point to the floor like, come sit down. Right. And here's how you know they were in trouble. One of the kids that were the most challenging, right? He comes in and he's like, oh, look, my favorite teachers are back. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Right. You give me so many problems. And so they came in and so they sat on the floor. Right. And so we just left it in silence for, I kid you not, maybe like 5 to 10 minutes.
Right.
And they were just sitting there. And we were looking at them and they were looking at us. And then we had them get a sheet of paper or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then we had them all write down what they did, right? And then stand up and tell us what they did.
Yeah.
Right? And so we did the whole thing like, I already know what you did. Right? So you have to tell us. And so they all had to stand up. And it was the most uncomfortable thing ever for both of us and for the kids. But, after that moment, they kind of went on a different path. Mm-hmm. I think it's because they realized, oh, I guess we did this wrong. And we were not like yelling at them or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We had this, I was telling Chris, let's find, like, what can we do different to like affect them and make them change how they behave and let them know that's not right. No, I'm not going to yell at you, but like, I'm going to make this so uncomfortable that you remember this forever. And whenever we leave again, mm-hmm. right, you don't act this way.
Right.
And I think we got a pretty good reaction out of it, and I think it worked. But let me tell you that was our first year. Throwing chairs, tearing up notes from substitutes, fighting, running around. So there you go.
And really when you look at that, it kind of comes back to what we've talked about today. We had not
we didn't have a we didn't have a culture of that either,
Right.
We didn't tell them exactly.
We didn't lay out our expectations. We hadn't practiced it with them.
Yeah.
They didn't know what the limitations were. There wasn't a culture. There was our day to day, but that day to day had created a culture that obviously couldn't sustain whenever we weren't there. Mm-hmm. So it was a big lesson learned from that. So
a huge lesson,
right,
for everybody. But
it was very uncomfortable.
So that thank you, boys and girls, for listening. You were such a good audience today. Right. But that was about the time we left.
So, look, here's what we can say: that Teach Bigger is for you. We want to give you information, but look, it's for us too.
Yeah, it's for us too.
We're learning as we go, and,
right.
and we're looking for new techniques. We're looking for things to challenge us and to challenge, the people that we're around. So,
and we're doing this journey together. So when I say enjoy the journey, I want you to just imagine me trying to balance in this yoga pose and almost falling over and remembering, hey, this is a journey. So There you go.
So, that's really what Teach Bigger is all about. That's
mm-hmm.
where it was birthed from. It's birthed from our experiences, from our fails, our successes, and, hopefully being able to help you in your journey as well. So,
yeah.
Hey, look, that's it for today.
Yeah.
So, thanks for listening to this first episode. And as we close out, I want to give you this challenge, that you would stop and think about the things we've talked about today, and that you would commit maybe for the next 6 months to listen to this podcast, and try to apply the things that we're talking about and see how does this help shape my thinking, help shape
right.
my life. Because we believe totally in what we're doing. We think that it's going to be exciting, and we know we're going to hear some great success stories. Mm-hmm. So, we want to cater this podcast to you, and we want to see people, not only teaching bigger, but living bigger.
Yeah.
So that's really what this is all about. So, we'll see you back on episode 2.
Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Hey, now remember,
go do something big.